so I'm already in a good mood. But so I was gonna take you guys through one of my bench sessions. I actually just got done training myself. First time flat benching since the showdown, which was last September, or not last September, but September previous. And I actually came back at 405 for a 3x3, which is super cool because we're regaining motor control in the tricep and the lat, and it's actually like happening. But I thought it better because like Bree is the one that is actually entertaining when she trains and whatnot. I want to lean more into the educational content and stuff. You didn't have to be here, I was just referencing you. But I wanted to start doing a series or some type of video where it's like transform your technique. So I've been posting more on TikTok and even on Instagram. I'm getting some messages because Jack West trains here pretty often with my buddy Pete, and they're like, oh my god, you got to do a collab with them. So there's the fucking collab. I want to fix Jack and Pete's squat, so I'm going to say transform your technique squat series. We'll do bench, we'll do deadlift, we'll do accessory work, and ideally I can just show you guys how you can manipulate your own anthropomorphic, or is that the word? I don't know. Anatomy for yourself to actually hit the muscles you want to hit, be more efficient on the squat, bench, and deadlift, and be more efficient on the accessory movement so that you can get more transfer from them to the big three. So let's get to it.
Fuck yourself. I'm down. I was good for it.
He said it.
If we didn't have squats on Monday, I would.
Okay. Well, next time.
And we just deadlifted. No, I honestly thought that we were gonna hit legs today, but I forgot it was a push day, so
I'm being a boring stickler and sticking to the program.
Pete's like, we gotta stay on program.
Have to do what's written.
But even still, I wanted to take these guys through and show them like how, because like Jack, we were talking about how you could like use your lats better on his like isolation work, but just we were talking when you were training with Emily, just how to like actually open up your hips and squat naturally as opposed to like trying to like just work your way through the movement. And there's a couple of little different techniques and cues that I think we can implement that's going to make it click real quick. And for Pete, same thing, because he's having like this little bit of torso rotation in the hole. I think if you just build a little bit more awareness as to what you're doing and what muscles you're using at certain positions in the range of motion, we can make it work a little bit better. So we'll just roll right into it.
Perfect. Protecting the squat, baby.
Are you guys warmed up? Like,
yeah, I'm good to go.
You know the cue, like what we talked about yesterday. Everybody always cues knees out. People like want to like drive your knees out and sit straight down into the squat, and they got like half of it right, because you do want to, more oftentimes than not, you don't want to like reach with your hips back. That's why I kind of gravitate against doing box squats, doing stuff that's actually going to drill people to arch into the squat themselves. But I don't like knees out because the knee is a joint that just bends. You don't want to actually fucking drive it out. You want to get the range of motion from the hips. So in order to get the range of motion from the hips, it doesn't start at the hips, it starts from the ground up. That's why I got all these bands here. Because if we're able to get the client, the trainee, whoever the fuck you're talking to, if you get the person to feel it in their feet and then actually connect that tension in their feet to what's happening at their hips, then they'll be able to translate it to the movement way easier, and the knees are going to go where the knees want to go. So we're going to use all these bands. It's going to look pretty funny at first, but I just want to do this so that you guys get a sense as to what we're actually accomplishing and trying to go for here. So I'll throw those on Jack. Let's go. So I told you guys it's gonna look a little bit ridiculous, but the purpose for this is you don't want the knees going out. You want the knees tracking neutral. How do you get the knees to track neutral? You wake up the musculature that works to extend the knee. Those are the quads. This is a modification of a TKE, terminal knee extension. It's basically a rehab PT exercise that's basically I keep saying basically, it's going to teach people where their kneecap needs to go by engaging the VMO, the vastus medialis muscle. It works when you lock the knee out. It makes the patella go where it needs to go, and it doesn't make it shift to the inside or the outside. It's going to make your quads burn. But not only that, we have the band around his ankles to create outward tension on his feet. So as the knee tracks neutral and forward, we have his hips, his glute medius, working to open up and externally rotate on the way down, so that as he externally rotates the hips, he can drop straight into his heels while the knee stays neutral. It's going to basically go from the ground up, create a very, very stable environment, his body to squat off of. So what you're going to do, Jack, is create tension against the band outward, so drive laterally through your heels. Don't step or anything. You're just going to squat. And then do probably, let's say, 4 seconds down, 4 seconds on the way up.
Okay.
Some tempo squats. And up. Slow, slow, slow. Even that transition out of the hole. And at the very top, terminal knee extension, so lock the knee out hard and flex the quad, yes.
Do you want him sitting back in a Spanish squat, or do you want him squatting through the hand?
Squatting through the other pattern. That's why the bands are light enough. Yeah.
Let your knees stretch forward.
What do you mean?
Let your knees come forward where you're sitting.
Don't lose that tension at the bottom. So even in the very, very bottom of the squat, I want you to focus on drive. Imagine, so a good visualization for this is like the force you're putting into the floor is laser beams. There's 2 laser beams going straight down through the ball of your foot, which is where you're pushing from, but there's also 2 laser beams going out this way from your heels.
Okay.
You're creating force out as well as down. Tight, 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 tight. Up. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Slower on the way up. I want to control deliberate intention. 3 more. 3, 4. Up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Squeeze. 2 more. Same thing, even slower. Feel it. Tight, 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 tight. Up. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. That transition out of the hole, I want it slower, no bounce. Tight, 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 tight. Up. Yes. Yes. Good. How do your legs feel?
Feel good. They feel warm. Yeah.
They're burning. That's the thing. Like this is, it's what I got from term I got from the Kabuki movement services special. I don't know, KMS, whatever the fuck it stands for. It's reactive neuromuscular training, RNT, using bands. These bands aren't meant to basically like disrupt the movement at all. They're just there to wake the muscle tissue up. Basically tell it, okay, this is what I want to feel when I'm going through the range of motion. It's nothing where like you can add them on accessory work, but it's not something that's actually adding resistance. It's just adding something that you can think about and feel and connect like that actual neurology from like the brain to the muscles activated. Do you want to do it? Yeah. Set up every time, but I wanted to do this because I want you guys to see what I'm talking about. There's multiple things happening all at once. The heels, you're creating that lateral heel tension, connecting the glutes to the external rotation at the hip. As you go into knee flexion, which is where the bands pulling forward come in. These things have to happen all at once, but if the trainee or the client struggles with one thing over the other, then, okay, maybe we bias towards the band around the ankles or band around the knee. It's not, it has to happen all at once and in sequence, but it can happen individually if that's something that you're deficient in. Me personally, I benefit more from the knee, from the bands pulling forward. I'm really, really good at using my glutes, but if I don't pay attention to where my knees are going, they go all over the place. So just 5 to 8 reps. Yeah,
Okay,
just
four down, 4 up.
Yep, yeah, just intentional. Yeah. See, and the interesting thing about Pete, keep going. The interesting thing here, Pete did a lot of Olympic lifting, I believe, right? So he has a tendency to go really, really deep and drive his knees out. But the thing with this, by adding this band around his ankles, it seems it prevents you from dumping into your hips and going low, low, low.
Because I have to be aware of how my ankle's moving in space, not just thinking about my hip and knees.
Yeah, exactly. See, with these, there's no real recommended like weights or loading or like rep scheme to do these. It's all about intent, because you can do 5 reps with these and basically make them the hardest 5 reps you'll ever do. It's just about what you're feeling, what you're squeezing, and what you're engaging as you're going through the movement.
Yeah, the ankle one is, I've used the TK band, I've never done anything with the proprioception of the ankle. It's like,
And that's the thing, because a lot of people like to put the hip circle from Mark Bell. Great, awesome tool, but people tend to always put it around the knees.
Yeah.
And that always seems to have people biased towards just driving their knees out.
Yeah.
Whereas the actual external rotation at the hip comes from tension and force output in the foot, like we were talking about the other day, generating the awareness from the ground up.
You've talked about cueing with the ball of the foot and that torque, right? Creating that torque in the foot.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that, especially because I wear a weightlifting shoe, so I'm not on the ground. So this is very helpful at helping cue that.
Good, I dig it. See, and that right there, that goes to show how like someone might benefit more from one versus the other thing. So let's actually get on his bar now. I'm going to cue you through it and out through the outside of your feet, and then driving the knees forward. You're basically aiming your pelvis, you're aiming your butt in between your heels by creating that outward tension and that knee tracking forward.
Got it.
Basically sitting down to take a shit, like an actual like if
How
you
we
were
should be.
how you should be, like the fucking the third world country kids that like just squat and shit. That's what we're talking.
Perfect squat.
So find that tension. Drive out through here, and then sit straight down. And up. Good. And up. Good. So now you saw on that one, he went a little bit lower and his back was rounded. Next time you squat, pause in the hole. Push out through here, push out through here. There. Now drive up. That's the tension that I want. If you saw it, as he drives that femur out this way, the glute medius, the high part of his butt cheek, it's going to start burning. So pause your squats like that, try to drive them out as you sit in the hole. And then up. And up. Feel a little different?
Oh yeah.
You're still going a little low, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just basically as it gets heavier, if you can build that sense of awareness, I've always said or always been taught, whatever it is, stability is strength. So if you can get a better familiarity and a better like awareness and be stronger at the very bottom, or be more stable at the bottom, you're going to be able to show off more strength coming out of the hole.
Definitely.
Yeah. So. That's the thing. You can make your warm up firm, but it's like then when you actually get to the heavy weight, so Pete's big thing is torso rotation in the hole. So not only do I want him working on connecting that lateral tension through his feet, but I'm also going to tell him close the gap between his humerus and his torso. No space here. Act like somebody's tickling you and you don't want it to happen. That's fine. Drive up. Look real good. Heels out and up. Yeah, yes. That felt different, didn't it? That's what I want you to feel every time. Drive up. Yeah. Up. Yep.
Wow.
How's that feel?
Wow. The lat tension and the band feeling.
Yeah.
Very.
Well, and that's what's cool about like just being semi-aware of like biomechanics and anatomy or whatever, because no one thinks about lats when they're actually squatting. But if you actually read an anatomy and physiology textbook, what bone do the lats actually insert on? It's the superior iliac spine of the hip. If a muscle crosses a joint, which lats cross the hip, it acts on that joint. So when you're squatting, you have to be aware of the lats in order to create at least a little bit of stabilization as you do it. That's why whenever anybody is squatting and they inhale and they go, and like the bar raises up, that's bullshit. You're sabotaging yourself from the very get-go, because if you're shrugging, the traps are engaged. If the traps are engaged, what do the lats have to do? They have to relax. If your lats are relaxed, what is unstable? Your pelvis. Who wants an unstable pelvis when they're squatting?
Not me.
Strippers, and that's it. So yeah. So it's not so much, don't think about making a cut with the ball of the foot. It's the force, the laser beams going straight down. The lateral heel tension is what's happening, because it's, you don't want to buy it. If why knees out is not the right cue is because that just is focusing on external rotation.
Okay.
You don't want only external rotation, but you do want it a little bit. So that's why we say lateral heel tension, but straight force down through the front of the foot.
Pressure essentially across.
Yes,
across
exactly.
the foot.
Because the pressure at the front is going to make the knee and the tibia rotate inward.
And then the heel, the pressure on the outside of the heel is going to stop the foot from collapsing.
Yes, and that's external rotation at the hip.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Because you want the knee to go it's basically working ground up again. It's like a fucking. I literally was thinking about this the other day. It was like I think it was like Demon Slayer, where he did like it's some like fucking attack where he's like spinning and it's like spirals. I know, but it's like
I heard Demon Slayer's sick. I heard it's sick.
Dude, the artwork is fucking.
Yeah, I heard
yeah, but it's like a spiral. Everybody says like, oh, screw into the ground.
Yeah.
It's not just screwing into the ground with your foot. It's screwing starting from all the way up here, because we're lateral tension on the heel going that way, but then a kind of like swoop of forward tension through the front of the foot, because you want to drive out through the hip, but then you want the knee to come inward. Not inward, but forward, so you can have as much upward power as possible. Yeah.
You want?
Should we throw it up?
I hope all this makes sense.
No, it.
And this is why I like the conversation that you and I had earlier.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about this, okay, what am I doing out or in, or which way am I, like these directions?
Yeah.
It's not just east or west. What else are we still doing? We're still trying to jump up with the weight and try to be powerful this way.
That might be the most athletic thing you've done in about 15 years.
All right. So now let's try to bring it together. Good way for some people to think about it is pressure through the big toe. So now, big brace, act like Oh yeah. Now squat. Lateral heel tension, pressure through the front of the foot. And up. Just like that. A little slower on the way down. Be more intentional. I want it squeezing. I want you feeling it. Drive up. Yep. Now be a little bit more violent on the way up. Try to jump up with the weight. Coiled spring. Tight, 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 tight. Drive up. Yep. One more like that. Close the gap. Close the gap. Lateral heel tension. Drive this out. Drive up. Back in. Feel good, Jack?
Yeah, I'm getting that connection here a lot better than I was, for sure.
And that's the biggest thing. Like if you can't feel the muscles engage when you're squatting, how can you expect to be as strong as you can be? It's like everybody always talks about my muscle connection for the bodybuilder, but as a power builder or a strength or a power lifter or just anybody who's lifting weights, if you can build a little bit better like mental connection, then you can demand it of yourself when the weight is heavy. Because if you're in the hole and you're like, holy shit, I'm gonna die, this shit's gonna kill me, but it's not gonna kill me if I keep this position, and it's all about feeling my glute medius engage, or like the side of my glute, or like keep my knee neutral, engaging my quads. Having that ability to be like, okay, quads, 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 or glutes, 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 you're gonna be able to reflect it easier when the weight actually gets heavier and you're under the pressure that you're gonna be under.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. You want to go? We got stuff all over the place.
Hey, you wanna go?
Yeah, it is. Saturday.
I mean, it's different because it's going against what my body wants to do, but it feels good.
The only reason I said make yourself as tall as possible in the hole is because if you're like squatting, you know you're low, you have to be low. But if you want to be tall, that's like gonna naturally have to be more external rotation at the femur, at the hip, and you're gonna go like this. Yeah, it's gonna push your pelvis forward more as opposed to just sitting back with it. Yeah. Because it's the shoulder and the hip have to move. They're both pivot points that have to move in conjunction with one another. So if I say get tall and the shoulders come back a little bit, the pelvis in turn is going to have to come under a little bit more through that external rotation.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. Cool.
I like that. You want to go over here?
We can.
Do you want another one?
Sure. Yeah. Up to you guys. Best of foot. Tall, tall, tall. Up. But like if you look at like your warm-up reps compared to that one, you were doing it like, you know what butt wink is? Or like lumbar flexion. Like pelvis kind of. Butt wink is like when you basically get range of motion from your lumbar spine and you round under to get deeper. But that's not strong. It's not stable. Yeah, if you can get that through, or you get that range of motion through the external rotation of the hip, you're going to be safer and stronger. And that's what you were doing there, because like that lower portion of his butt or lower portion of his spine stayed straight the entire way down, even in the hole.
That's the goal. I had a butt wing problem for a long time, so I've been working on that. So
yeah,
that makes me feel good.
Yeah, sweet. I dig it. One more, Pete.
More of a normal descent.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
go for it. Yeah, biggest thing for you is just building that awareness in the hole. Yeah. Like not like even controlling it, just if you can get a little bit more stable, like avoid just dumping into it, like you're gonna be fucking strong. So yeah. Close the gap, lock those elbows in. Yep. Yeah, buddy, that one.
I felt that like
now we fight about it. Jump up with the shit. Two more. Control. Ow. Yeah. Control. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I can feel, you know the difference when your pelvis is rolled under and you're sitting on your hamstrings?
Yeah.
And you have to re-engage the quads, so you lose the pop, as opposed to when it feels like the rebound in like the vertical. You actually have that.
See, and that's exactly what I want, and that's exactly like what I have gotten my squat to be, but I want everybody else to, because the only, like there are all these cues. There's like knees out, knees forward, fucking drive with your quads, like T-spine extension, whatever. But the best position you can be in when you're squatting is literally all you have to think about is push. That's what you want. That's what you want to strive for. Cool. Sweet. Yeah, I love it.
Dude, fuck yeah.
That's pretty much the video. yeah, that's really all I want to do. But,
Here, I can do it.
Well, come here. Okay. Because I want to talk about the close the gap thing.
Close the gap,
Close the gap. But so before we end the whole thing, I wanted to talk. We already talked about how like the lats create the stability and they generate. They're involved on the squat, even though it's not a lat exercise. It still incorporates the entire body. The reason I was saying close the gap, and that's like what I was doing, is because like if you think about it, and this is one of my favorite analogies, it's the whole like we're brains piloting, we're brains piloting bone mechs with meat armor. That's what we are. That's like what we are. But it's like the muscles that we have, this tissue that's here, this dictates what the skeleton is going to do. The bones are what's moving. So when I say close the gap, the lat is this muscle. It's this big thing right here. What does it act on? It doesn't act on the hand or the forearm or anything. It acts on the humerus, this bone right here. So if I say close the gap in between here, it's acting to try to depress and retract, or depress and extend the shoulder slightly, which is going to create this stability, this engagement when you squat. Because as strong as your legs are, everybody has that buddy where it's like, oh, I can leg press 1,000 pounds, but then they go to squat 405 and they fucking die. Because it's not just a leg exercise, it's a leg exercise that demands an incredible amount of stability from the upper body as well, and that's how you get it. Cool. So,
sweet. Thank you, Ryan.
And then outro somewhere. I don't fucking know. Is that the outro?
There you go.